Hey guys, Winter Wolf here. King Z over there. We have one more entry. It was our bonus entry for Memorial Day 2024. We were doing the Salute to Soldiers month on Winter Wolf's Den. We banged out 4 different movie reviews for you guys to go check out. Most recently, we just covered up the Mac Daddy of all the modern war movies, Saving Private Ryan. Please feel free to go check that out. Let us know in the comments below what you thought of the movie. If you were there on launch, back in the 90s when that came out, make sure you call out yourself and let us know. Please feel free to age yourself as we did. But tonight, we're doing something a little bit different. We're staying on the military theme, on our Salute to Soldiers theme, but we're going series-wise. We're going to do Band of Brothers because King Z had to twist my arm. No, he didn't. I really wanted to rewatch this anyway because, as we were talking about on a side note, Masters of the Air that just came out really didn't hit the same way that Band of Brothers in the Pacific hit back in the day. So I was happy to go back and recheck out Band of Brothers. I don't know what you think about that lead-in point, though, with the Masters of the Air, just for folks that are watching, because it is a current, show on Apple TV.
So, Band of Brothers, I think, has much better character development and brotherhood built, where Master of the Air, the characters were, I would say, paper thin. Like, you didn't really get to know them like you did Band of Brothers. And, I mean, for a good reason. I mean, Master of Air covers the Bloody 100th, which was the daylight bombing squadron that took the most casualties during World War II. And I guess they didn't want you to get too attached to certain characters because they're going to get killed off. But that kind of happened in Band of Brothers too. And I think it just hits more and it makes you feel something when there's a loss like that.
Right.
When you're connected to a well-established character, unlike how you feel in Master of Air. It's like, oh, yep, they flew up.
Yep.
They went through the meat grinder. 2 planes came back.
Dude, you're not wrong, man. I mean, and that'll be the difference, when history looks back on Masters of the Air and people compare that show to Band of Brothers, to Walking Dead, to Game of Thrones, to those kind of marquee, AAA shows that have characters that get developed over a period of seasons. And then, when you lose track, even characters that aren't around long, they're developed in a way that when they go, if they're in and out in one plot arc in one season, you end up, you miss them when they're gone, I mean, Band of Brothers only ran 10 episodes. It's not like it's some generational legacy, General Hospital, Friends, Seinfeld, Sopranos length of a show. Like, no, it's 10 episodes and you're gone.
Yeah.
Like that's in and out. But they were still built up to mean, right, that's what I'm saying.
To you, like a show like that. Like, you feel for these characters and knowing that they're real. Yep. These are real people. It just, it had so much better impact.
Oh, for sure. I'm glad you mentioned the phrase "real people" because that's actually the first thing I wanted to open with, just to kind of get the. It's not a gimmick, but it's kind of a unique thing I thought this series did. When Band of Brothers opens, they're interviewing older guys that were actually part of Easy Company, like they were there. They dropped in. They were the paratroopers that dropped in. They went on the road with Easy Company as they marched into all the places they marched, but they don't caption who's speaking with their names and ranks and where they were. Exactly. And then at the end, in the very last episode, they reveal who's speaking, which one is Dick Winters, which one is, they call him Gonorrhea in the movie. Yeah, he was one of the survivors. Garneri. Lipton was another one. Yeah. They had like 4 or 5 different guys there, with Winters being like the lead guy, but they didn't reveal their identities. That way they could still maintain that sense of dramatic tension through the show. You know what I mean? So unless you read the book, because this was based on a book, if you had studied Easy Company or, World War II and were familiar with particular, I don't know how you'd study that in just generic history and know who died where. Like, that'd be a reach. But if you read the book Band of Brothers way before the series came out, you'd know who died when. So I was just saying that was a nifty gimmick, I thought, or technique, we'll say.
I believe there's like 3 or 4 books that cover Easy Company in the 506 of the 101st. A lot of memoirs, like Dick Winters wrote his own story. I think that's the one that this was based off of, was like his, but they mixed in a lot of their other ones, which I think we'll talk about a lot with the character building in this, because I think it's done fantastic, especially starting in episode 6, while they're out in Bastogne.
Oh yeah, that's actually, I think that's routinely rated. That's the one with the nurse, right? The French, or she's Belgian, I think. The medic, but he goes into the town and he meets the nurse. Yeah,
Renee.
I checked out yep. I checked out a bunch of like top 10 ranking lists, last night getting ready for this, and routinely that's one of the episodes in people's top 3. Like that's a great episode. But, yeah, that was phenomenal right there. Now I wanted to just say, when you were talking about this show is kind of like an amalgamation of different people's autobiographical works and just other kind of histories of what went down, in these different actions in different places. I came across a quote somewhere. I don't remember where it was, but it was from Dick Winters, who was a creative consultant on the show. It was a quote, I guess, that he taken from him and Tom Hanks, where when he was asked about what he thought of the final production of the show, he said, "I went in hoping that they got it at least 80% accurate, and what I saw was they got it about 12% accurate." And then Tom Hanks' response to that was, "Dick, this is Hollywood. If we get 4% accurate, we got to call that a win. That's just how it's got to be here." So I thought that it was fun. I think it was all said in good fun and with a certain amount of jest, because even if it wasn't specific to like the incremental mileage these guys covered in a particular day or in a particular month, or like that kind of stuff, I think the spirit of this show, as a guy that wasn't there, like it seemed that it captured everything thematically I would imagine a war drama would want to capture. What it was like to be stuck out there in the mud and the cold, and to be hungry, or to be surrounded, or to be getting shelled and there's nothing you can do about, what I mean? Like, I thought this captured a good amount of all that. What do you think of that just general thematic statement?
I think it for an adaptation, which we've talked about adaptations up
policy.
The wazoo. Our policy
what's
of
the standard policy
is that adaptations are hard.
Right. And regardless of the medium, boys and girls, regardless.
Yeah, and I think Tom Hanks hit it on the head, where it was like, if you didn't get 4% accurate, then you're hitting home runs.
Let's talk about the 4%, because I think that one of the things, and I'm not an expert in this kind of stuff, and you served in the Army, you're an expert in modern Army and things like that. But when we look at something like Band of Brothers and Saving Private Ryan, like I feel like I'm pretty confident in being able to look at a uniform or a piece of kit, a particular setup or a formation. I know which tank shouldn't be where. I can identify several of the aircraft, like that kind of lay person, like one notch above lay. You know what I mean? And this looked like World War II to me. Like, I've seen World War II documentaries. I've been to World War II museums. I have veterans in my family in different places that served in different branches. And this all jive. Like, this is all consistent with what I grew up imagining World War II would have looked like.
Yeah, the period part of it, I think they got quite accurate. I think a lot
like
of
the aesthetic.
I think a lot of it would be like how battles actually went down, like how the artillery actually felt, who went down when, like timing and stuff like that. I know you have to do something for dramatic effect,
right?
Stuff like that.
Well, that's
the part that I think that where the accuracy goes away. But I think like period piece and hitting the big points that they hit. I mean, if you want to talk like I always lead to this as how it should be done, because then you can go on the other side of the spectrum and you have movies like Pearl Harbor.
Oh God, dude! Should we just do that one?
Which the only thing they have accurate is that there is a harbor called Pearl Harbor in Hawaii.
It had planes,
and it got attacked.
Japan attacked it.
I think that's about the best they got on that one.
Pretty much, dude. I think as a tangent, we should probably just like do a watch party or like we should review that, just because it's that hilarious. Like I'm really starting to pull for that. Like movies that get it completely wrong. You know what I mean? We'll talk about that later.
Oh, and it also has our war movie hero in it, Tom Sizemore.
It does. Get your what do you say? Get out of my ass and into the war. When they're actually taking the first part of the attack by Japan. He's the lead mechanic, right? Isn't he a technician of some sort? Yeah, he's got a guy cowered in the sandbags. And he's like, get out there and fight. Get out of my ass. Get into the war. I'm like, dude, you're shooting a rifle at a plane that's 14,000 feet up there. You're probably not going to hit anything. But all right, whatever you want to do, Sarge. Dude, he's in everything from like 92 to like 02, isn't he?
He was in
like he really is.
War movie. You couldn't do a movie in the late 90s, early 2000s without Tom Sizemore.
And he was always a sergeant. That's the most specific kind of typecasting I've ever seen. Yeah. Like you're in the same branch, at the same rank, playing the same guy.
Well, in Black Hawk Down, he was a colonel.
he was
a light.
Was he a colonel? Yeah. That's right. Oh, yeah, it was close. He was still being the same hard ass guy though. But yeah, I think like you said, timing in something like Band of Brothers, there are points that need to be compressed You know, like when they were holding different points along like the battle line, and maybe they were static for like 4 days before a shelling happened or something. Like, no, that needs to be. You don't have 4 days. You just don't. You know, it's like it becomes a relentless attack that they're repelling, except for a quiet moment so they can get a story beat in that develops character. You know what I mean? But I think otherwise, like this hits the aesthetic of exactly what you'd want. Yeah. You know, and that's good enough, I think, to make it a success.
Yeah. And as we talked about Saving Private Ryan's what made Band of Brothers happen. Like, Band of Brothers was trying to be optional for a while. And then when Tom Hanks did Saving Private Ryan, he actually started reading World War II history books, and he came across Band of Brothers. And he's asking, why hasn't this been made? And he's the one who spearheaded it. And one of the things that they were missing was like a big name executive producer. And Tom Hanks, at the time, was becoming that bigger name. I mean, he had Forrest Gump, he had Philadelphia, he now had Saving Private Ryan. He had a few others in there, so he's becoming one of those A-list actors at this time, coming from his comedic roles of like Dragnet and Splash and
Big.
Joe versus Volcano, Big.
Yeah. Turner and Hooch. You always forget Turner and Hooch. Don't forget Turner and Hooch.
But Tom Hanks went to his buddy who he did Saving Private Ryan with, Steven Spielberg, and Steven Spielberg's production company jumped on this, and then Steven Spielberg put his name on as executive producer. So when you're executive producer, you bring one of 5 things to the movie, and one of them could be just your name. Like, he never directed anything. His production company never really actually touched anything. They didn't put any money into it, but his name gave it credibility.
Oh, for sure. And if you go back and look at like reprints of the novel that this was based on, like even the novel cover mentions it says produced by Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg, like on the cover of the book. You know, so everything was changed to reflect, you know, that kind of standing to get him and to get people interested in that kind of name.
Now, Tom Hanks did direct one episode too. Just to put that out there.
I didn't see that where I looked. Which one did he do? Did he do the pilot?
He directed,
or not the pilot, but episode 1?
I think it's episode 5, Crossroads. Yeah, episode 5. He directed Crossroads.
I got that up here. Yeah, cool. You know what's interesting about this too, as I have it up here and I'm kind of scrolling down them. It looks like a different director did most of these. I see a David Frankel did a couple, but it looks like all the rest of them are all one-offs. Which is kind of interesting because when somebody else, Mikhail Salomon, did 2, but still that's multiple directors in a 10-part series. Mm-hmm. And as we've often talked about with some of the other lesser shows that we've watched, you can see a different drop in quality in a lot of cases. Like, I think that having multiple directors can expose weaknesses in your story when everybody's not on the same page. Or you get a bunch of professionals on the same page, like something like Andor or something like Band of Brothers, you're in a stronger position. But when we watch these other Marvel and Disney shows that have, you know, you did episode 1, then I did episode 2, then your mom did episode 3 and 4, but, you know, she had an idea to do a musical in one of them, and then, you know, my dad decided he was going to do a murder mystery, and it all just kind of falls apart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that doesn't happen here. I would challenge anybody watching this show to pick out an episode that doesn't feel like the others. Like, they do integrate seamlessly as they tell their story.
Yeah, it's almost like it's 11 chapters in an anthology.
Right. But an anthology written on theme and not like, hey, Kingsley and I are going to do a horror anthology, but we're going to bring in a guest and she's going to tell a love triangle story like Twilight. Like, no, it's still all just horror, you know? It's just maybe different locations of horror, different cultures of horror, but it still has a horror vibe, you know? But Band of Brothers, it looks like to me, to simplify the point, Band of Brothers looks like they shot 12 hours of footage with all the same guys, all the same actors involved, and then just evenly distributed everything at a logical breakpoint at the end of an episode. That way each episode is more or less the same length, give or take a couple of minutes, except for I think they combined. Oh, no, they didn't combine. Episode 1 is just legit, like, feature film length.
Yeah, it was just long.
It was 2 hours or whatever. Right. But then everything else after that, I think, is about the same, give or take 52 minutes or whatever it is. It doesn't do that, again, that stupid Marvel Disney thing where it's like one episode is 1 hour and 5 to get it rolling, but then the next one's 27, the next one's 35, and then the next one's 27, 35, 50, and you're like, why is this all over the place like a EKG? It shouldn't be that way. It screws with your pace.
They don't know how to write it properly.
Right.
That's
what I'm saying.
You should be able to write and like first off they do so much at the beginning, and then you're like cutting stuff from your other time frames where you're not writing it for the time. You're just writing for, all right, we gotta get this chunk done. We gotta get this chunk done. All right, that's a whole episode. Just don't do that. And just here's a check. No, you need to write it to fill the time because you're trying to stay consistent. And say you don't have much, you can actually throw character building in there, setting building. You can throw mythology in there.
Yep.
All sorts of stuff. So that's one of the things that is missing. Is like all they want to give you is the meat and potatoes. They don't care about getting you the broccoli or the green beans on the side, the nice little drink. Yep. They're not giving you the full meal of a show. They're giving you bite-sized portions that you can easily digest and they can bank off of.
You know, and I think that's in a best case scenario because you and I, like, we've watched some stuff over the last couple of years, shows of varying lengths, 6 episodes. I think the longest thing we watched probably had 10 episodes. I can't even remember what it would have been that had 10. But I feel like there's been a range there between 6 to 10. But the thing we're always on the lookout for, and this is the point I'm going to match it to Band of Brothers, don't worry, is that sometimes even within these shorter run times with a shorter number of total episodes, we do get filler episodes. Like, how is that a thing? How is it possible that Ahsoka could have multiple filler episodes in there? I got him, guys. I got him. You saw the eye roll. Freeze it. Freeze frame it. Right? Like, you can't afford to have filler, bro. Like, you've already got a bloated cast with too many subplots, and you can't pump the brakes and do filler. I needed meat and potatoes, and you gave me endless breadsticks, and they're not even as good as frozen Olive Garden breadsticks. You gave me nothing.
If you want to stick with the Ahsoka analogy, it was like if they shot Band of Brothers, but then they followed the third armor during the Battle of Bastain. Like Easy Company's not even in it.
Dude, I'll go you a step further. It's like if you shot Ahsoka like Band of Brothers, but then instead of professionally cutting it into 10 episodes, you literally just let any random person off the street hit the cut, copy, and paste on your editing bay timeline and just randomly pick 10 breakpoints, and that's how you end up with an uneven story. But let's get into like specifically into Band of Brothers. Obviously, we're not going to go episode by episode. Ain't nobody got time for that. But it has a very logical start point and a very logical end point. It's the beginning of that iteration of Easy Company. The guys are training to be deployed. They're at Currahee Mountain in West Virginia.
It's
that's where they're because that's first.
No, it's in Georgia. It's right here.
I thought it was in West Virginia.
No, it is in Georgia. It's Camp Toccoa.
Toccoa. That's right.
Yeah, it is the mountain. 3 miles.
I think I was mixing this
3
with
miles down.
3 miles down. I think I was mixing this with one of the other 700 World War II things we just watched. My apologies. But it starts with these guys training up. Their plot arcs and their trials for their main characters that you're going to follow get started right away as Winters has to cope with the new commander who's a dickweed, Ross from Friends, as Sobel, I think was his name, if I remember right.
Lieutenant Sobel when we first meet him.
And they kick everything off within like that 2-hour episode. Lots of stuff goes on.
Yeah, a lot of stuff goes on. So first off, when we talked about this episode, you have to talk about the very beginning when they were talking to the actual people and they're interviewing them about what made them sign up for the Airborne, and they're like, we were at the recruiting station, like, who wants to be armor, who wants to be medics, and it's like, who wants to be airborne, and then you're like, what is the Airborne?
Yep.
And they're like,
something new.
It's something new. It's where you jump out of airplanes. They're like, well, why do we want to do that? Well, you get paid $50 more. And he's like, that's $50 more, so that makes it $100. Sign me up.
Yep.
$100 a month they were making. I just wanted to point that out. $100 a month, and they were volunteering.
You could buy a house in 500 acres for $30. That's the difference.
And like, so it starts off like the episode starts off with them like on the airfield, all geared up, ready to jump, and then the lieutenant comes out and he's like, "No invasion tonight. It's been postponed." Yep. So you get started.
That was a great opening.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole book ending that you really like that they talked about. Like, you have that start, like, you have them all getting ready, and then he calls it, like, heavy fall. He's like, we're covered in fog, high winds on the drop zone. No, the jump has been canceled or postponed. No invasion tonight. And then it cuts back. Then they have him in the movie theater. which has a few storylines that you see in the movie theater over this episode and episode 2. No, it's all in this episode. It's all in episode 1.
It's just it's a long, it's this one. It's just a long episode.
But then
they
cuts to
they make
Dick.
very good use of their time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Then you meet Dick Winters, and then you meet his best friend Nix.
Yep.
And then they start talking about Nix is there, and he's like, he's been promoted up to the battalion staff, and he's like, I think it's clearing up. Do you think it's clearing up? He's like, no. And he was like, I think it's clearing up.
They had a pretty good I think they had a pretty good relationship through the series. You know what I mean? Yeah. As Winters, because he starts at what rank did Winters was what rank when he started, and what rank when he finished? And where did he finish?
Major by the end of this series.
And he stacks like Battlefield. You were talking about this the other day. He stacks like Battlefield promotions because of his own, like his own merit. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't get passed up because he knows somebody. Like he earns everything he does. Like he's very good at what he does through the thing, through the show. And one of my favorite parts about his character being developed is he's obviously always looking out for his guys, but some of them don't trust him because of his religion, which was kind of an interesting sticking point because they call him a Quaker or whatever.
Religion,
right? Because he's something of a pacifist, but not really, which was odd. But I like the back and forth between these guys, these characters they set up, because they're portrayed as very real people. They're not portrayed as superheroes. They're not portrayed as paladins, paragons, whatever word you want to use. You know what I mean? They're just normal guys. Like they gripe about the circumstances they're in. They disagree with some of the actions that they have to take. They have emotions in battle situations that get them into some shit, and they make questionable decisions. I'm thinking of Garnere, who goes off the deep end when he finds out his brother got killed in Italy, and they ambush a German patrol without Winters giving them the order to do so. Basically, like exposing it's a nighttime movement. You know,
that was
he
in
could
episode
have
2.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, and all this stuff gets banged out early, and then like every good character arc in a good show, by the end of this series, like Garnere's like a hero. Like he saved his buddy, lost a leg doing it, but like he saved his buddy. He was more open and respective to the replacement guys coming in. That happens about episode 4 or 5. There's one that's actually titled "The Replacements,"
episode 4.
They're all shitting on the new guys, and then the one he shits on in particular by the end of the episode calls him gonorrhea like the other guys do, and Garnere goes, "I like that kid. He's gonna be okay."
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So like they change, and they all do that, and some of them change for the worst.
Yeah,
you know, like Compton. I'm thinking Crompton or whatever his name is.
So
the one that gets shot in the ass. They all get shot in the ass.
Oh yeah,
like 4 guys get shot in the ass, dude.
Lieutenant Compton. Yeah, it's a Easy Company tradition.
Yeah.
So one of the things in like World War II time is like when they were building regiments and divisions, like people would go to basic training, AIT. They would be together, and then they would all deploy together. That way, you would have that. Yep. You would know the person next to you. And like Winters hammers that home well when they first meet Lieutenant Compton.
About the gambling.
And he was like, these guys signed up to be the airborne, so when they were in a fight, so they know they would be next to the best. Because one of the things they hammered in the airborne is you had to be the best soldier. Like you saw, they sent a guy home because he stole rations. Yep. They sent another guy home, like another guy broke because he couldn't do that his weekend pass was taken away at the very beginning. First time we meet Lieutenant Sobel. And like,
dude, that becomes like a catchphrase for him on a fucking t-shirt. That guy, weekend 48-hour pass revoked.
Yeah.
48. It's like anti-Oprah, like 48-hour pass revoked from everybody. I mean, it's like a thing, you know.
And it broke him. Now, you didn't say what you want about. He later became captain. So during that episode, he got promoted captain. Mm-hmm. Lieutenant Winters got promoted to first lieutenant. Yep. In that episode, he might have been just like it was always he tried to make it about him. Every time something good happened to him, he had to make something bad for someone else, or something bad happened to him, he had to make it worse for everybody else. But and you saw that with the special meal. And it's supposed to be rain tomorrow, so it's like there's going to be classroom lecture, and I think the men are entitled to a special meal. I like spaghetti. And then you had the whole them eating. It's like, this isn't spaghetti. This is army noodles covered in
This isn't Italian, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
They
Is
call
the
this
line
spaghetti.
because Garnieri says it to another Italian guy, right? Which was good shit. But you know what I like about I did like one thing about Sobel, right? He gets himself into trouble later where he gets exposed. He's kind of like the guy from Heartbreak Ridge. It's almost the same. It's almost the same thing. Like he's from supply and logistics, but he wants the unit to reflect well on him. So he drills the hell out of him, and he's right there running with him too. Like he's there for all. They're 3 miles up, 3 miles down. He's running with them in most of those scenes. So
Silver.
you know what I'm saying? So like he's a dick. He's a dickweed for sure. But like it's not like he's running them from behind a desk.
Yeah,
But what gets him? Yeah, go ahead.
I said, what the big part is that he bonded them together in their pure hatred
Right.
for him.
Right, which is tried and true. Everybody, dude, like even on the civilian side, like in the hospital, there are certain directors and supervisors that everybody on the unit hated, but it made you come to the aid of the person next to you all the quicker if you heard like, king or queen, bitch face was coming down. Like if that person was behind on something, you had their back. It's like negative reinforcement. Everybody says it doesn't work, but I got like 9 trillion examples where like it does work, But like when we fast forward into Sobel's arc, he gets himself into trouble because like all good, academy graduates or war college graduates, when they get out in the field, like he gets exposed in the most hilarious way of being out of his depth.
He gets jumpy. He's always feels like he has to be the best, and he makes a lot of mistakes.
Right, which would have got guys killed a lot.
Like the first time where they're in a position, and this is before they go to England, and he's like, and they're like, we have perfect cover here. That is like, no, we're supposed to be over there. And he's like, tell them to move out, and they have to obey his lawful orders. I mean, there's nothing wrong with those orders to make him to make them unlawful.
Right, they were just stupid.
They move up, and then the whole other squad just stood up, and it was like, your whole squad is killed. 25 of them are injured. He's like, leave 3 people behind. The rest of you report. And he's like, who are you? He's like, Easy Company, 506, 101st. Like, okay. Yeah. The OC, which that's what it stands for, observation control.
Yeah.
And like, then you hear them talking, Winters, Nix, and the new lieutenant coming in to replace Nix, because Nix was heading up to battalion at this time. This is before he got promoted up. And they he's like, I heard he gets jumpy in the field. He goes, well, if we're going to talk about this, we need to keep it between ourselves. And then right there, Sobel comes up, and then they just turn around and look at him. He's like, all right, let's move him out. And this is when they're catching the train to get onto the boat to go to England.
Yeah.
And then in England, the best scene ever. I love this scene from beginning to end. So they're Winters coming down. They get to, and his platoon gets where they need to be. And like he's like, we need Sobel to take this drive this crossroad. And they're like, he's late again. And then it cuts to Sobel, and he's like, there's a fence here. There's not supposed to be a fence here. And then he finds out that he's like 1 grid square off. So that means 1,000 meters. So a full kilometer off from where he needs to be. And then you have the one guy who does
That's miles for you, not metric type, just so you guys know that's 2.2 miles.
Yeah. And they had one of the privates in the back. Like, he's like, don't take cover behind that bush. And they're like, can you do Captain Howard?
Guy that does impressions for context. Yeah.
And he sits there and he's like, Captain Sobel, what's the hold up? He's like, who said that? Who wrote? He's like, I think that's Major Howard. Major Howard?
Yeah.
When did he? He's like, maybe he's walking between the companies. He's like, I said, Captain Sobel, what's the hold up? He's like, a fencer. No, that dog just won't hunt. He's like, cut that fence and get this dog on the road.
Yeah. And by fence they mean 2 strips of wire. You know what I mean?
It's like it's nothing. It's a cow pen.
It's cow pasture. Like it's nothing. It's not barbed wire at a prison camp or anything like that. You know what I mean? It's not razor wire. It's 2 thin strips of wire, non-electrified. Clip, gone.
Yeah, but you also don't want to let the animals out. That's what he got in trouble for later. But then Lieutenant Winters like, we can't wait anymore. We need to take this. And like he improvises the whole command, and he comes out, and there's this English guy riding down the road on his bike.
Yeah, on his bike.
And then they cross the road, so he turns around, and he's like, oh, bloody hell. And then they cross the road again, so he turns around again. And then he comes back, and he comes up to Lieutenant Winters like, that's it, Yanks.
You got me. That guy cracked me up. That was almost like something out of like a National Lampoon, like European Vacation skit with Chevy Chase. It was that funny.
Oh,
I thought that was good. But that scene comes, and then this is what gets Sobel into his ultimate downfall. Is the pride that he has that just took the wound here, is he basically tries to discipline Winters at that point. Winters can sign off on something or opt for the court-martial. Yep. Winters opts for the court-martial, right? And gets it into the proceedings with who's ever adjudicating that, and basically proves that Sobel was an idiot.
No.
And actually, that never would have happened had they got him in. Say it again?
His court-martial never happened. So.
Oh, wait, is that right? He maneuvered him in a way that Sobel would have had to admit he was an idiot with the orders and the actions. I thought that's how it went down.
No. So what actually happened was...
Because it was clever as hell.
Because he came up and when you're receiving a non-judicial punishment, or we refer to as Article 15, which is what he was going to receive, it's a little bit different back then than it is now. Like, there's different punishments you get. But if you believe you're innocent and there's nothing wrong, you can always request trial by court-martial, which this is what Lieutenant Winters did. He requested trial by court-martial because he knew he wasn't in the wrong on this.
Right.
And so he had to be removed from the company while the proceedings happened. So they're trying to figure out how to do this in a war zone. It's something they haven't done in a long time. What that did was, like, the NCOs got together and they were like,
"Oh, that's right,"
and they resigned their stripes.
Right. Like 6 of them, right?
Yeah.
That was the group of 6, right?
All of their leading NCOs, all refused to be an NCO in Easy Company under Captain Sobel.
And they tried to transfer out, right?
Yeah. Well, no, they were resigning their commission. They wanted to be privates again. Like, they were like,
I thought somebody tried to
not work with him. So then you go into Colonel Sink's office, and he's like, I would have you shot, because they were committed mutiny, which is a punishable by death offense, especially in the time of war.
War zone, yeah.
So he punishes one, knocks him down to private, and ships him out of the company. Yep. Then he knocks another guy down to private, but he gets to stay, and the rest of them are kind of lucky, and he tells them to move out. And then they were talking about, like, how this whole then they're in there talking to Sobel, asking why it happened. And they said this whole court-martial with Winters is, like, got everyone on edge. And then that's when Sobel was replaced. And that's when they put Lieutenant Henke in charge. Who...
yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And they're sending Sobel off to train non-infantry soldiers to be airborne, like chaplains, stuff like that. And because he trained Easy Company, which Easy Company was one of the best ones in the regiment, that's why it made sense to send him, because apparently he knows how to train people to make them hate him, but get the best out of them in the same instance. He's just not good with commanding people or having, personality or sense of humor.
having applicable field skills, because he clearly didn't have any of that. Yeah. Or his judgment or his his gut instincts out in the field were terrible.
So when Sobel was transferred, the court-martial of Winters just disappeared.
Right.
It never happened. Like, after he was gone, they just made it disappear, and they put him back in Easy Company as one of the platoon leaders again.
Which is 1,000% where he wanted to be, and we see that over the course of, like, the next 2-3 episodes, and then one of them obviously has that one great scene, because you and I talked about this last week, where the guys he's with take the artillery battery. Yep, and it's a textbook takedown, episode 2, right? And it's so textbook that, like, the technique and the approach is still taught, like how they did it, right? Which was good stuff. Now, but it's also another mark of good storytelling and good writing, because in that episode they get the big, like, macro level win that they did that, but then Winters takes the micro level hit because he loses that one kid. Yeah, like, he loses the one guy in the bunker. Right, the one they picked up. I think, was that Hall? Yeah, was that Hall. McAvoy, or was that later? Okay, right. So and that's another thing, guys. Star-studded cast on a level that obviously would have made Saving Private Ryan proud. Lots of familiar faces.
In episode 4 of the replacement, because he was one of the replacements.
All right. So not McAvoy and not Hall. McAvoy played Hall. It was a different younger soldier in his group. He dies in the bunker. I think it's a grenade that went off that caught him.
Yeah, it was
inside, like when they're in the
tripwire
trench tunnel.
grenade.
Yes, yep. And Winters finds him as he catches up to where the kid had gone. So you have the big level win is what I was saying, and yay, everybody did this, and then, you know, Dick, it was perfect and good job, but you know, he's still punched in the gut about losing the kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you never get through perfectly. But that was good stuff. But I was saying to you the other day that one of the things I didn't like about the show down the second half, and the character development's all great with everybody throughout the way, and this is more nitpick than anything else, you know, because we still have, you know, in episode 3, we get that mini arc with Blythe. He's all PTSD'd into being blind until Winters talks to him, and all of a sudden, you know, he can see again, like literally, you know, according to the episode. So we get all that kind of good stuff, but I didn't like the show as much, I think, once Winters was removed from like going out with the guys. Like it just seemed diminished to me in some way. I don't know if you shared that opinion or not, or if that's just something that rubbed me the wrong way. What do you think about that?
I mean, it wouldn't tell the story accurately if they kept Winters as the company commander.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I guess I need to hang up the argument on that, or hang up the nitpick on that. Because I mean, when I'm looking at I have the laptop open next to me too, and I'm looking at episodes 4, 5, and 6, and right when you see the titles, it's like, okay, I remember what happened there. I remember what happened there. Like episode 4 is the replacements, so we get to see what it's like for new guys getting into the unit. And again, this isn't a fairy tale. So like the new guys coming in get the shit end of the stick in terms of treatment from the guys that have already been through the grinder. Like they're not well liked because they're new. They're fresh faced, they're clean. Some of them are, you know, rah gung ho, like the original guys were when they were setting out before they had seen the shit.
Well, you also have to
So I
think
thought there was a lot of good moments there too.
the original guys have been together for 2 years and I've already done a combat jump.
You're replacing my friends.
Yeah, in France. So these guys didn't run Curtahay. They didn't go 3 miles up and 3 miles down with them.
Right. Which again, it's kind of like the that Private Ryan point where, like, you know, when they were training to make the movie, they kept Matt Damon separate from the unit and put him through a different kind of training than the guys went through to make him hate him. That was clever.
But yeah, Crossroads, episode 5, which was directed
I'm
by
looking at
Tom
that.
Hanks, where he also has a cameo in it as well, in that one.
It was. Did he have a speaking role? I don't even remember.
No,
Or was it
he
just
was
a glimpse?
he was just in the
Yeah,
background.
That's what I thought. I think I caught that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was was that the rescue operation across the river?
No. That's episode 9.
Oh, that happens that much?
Oh, no. Yeah, you're right. Crossroads does have that rescue one because
Yeah, the Operation
this one-
Pegasus. They were going to rescue 140 comrades.
Yeah, where he was writing the reports. This is where he was
Yeah.
writing a report of his last action as company commander of Easy Company, because he took over as company commander in episode 2 because their commander's plane got hit and everybody inside died. 24 troopers died in that one. It's the only 24 troopers they lost in the initial operation of Normandy. And then he was the most ranking officer left. It was at him and Compton were the only 2 officers left at that time that jumped in with Easy Company. And they gathered up, and they talked about this in Saving Private Ryan that we reviewed earlier. If you want to check out it, here's a card. How they made hodgepodge units of pretty much, all right, you can shoot. We're coming here. This is our rally point.
Yeah.
Let's get to the rally point. We can get you back where you belong later. And that's how Hall became part of them. They got that hodgepodge unit together
They
because
picked
a
them
lot
up.
of them missed their drop zones because, like they showed with Winners, is that it's like, we gotta get them out of here now, and they made the light green, and so they jump.
Yeah.
When they see the green light, they don't actually know where they are. You can't tell where you are looking at the ground. They didn't have handheld GPS units. So they
just
had to
look like
jump
ground.
out. And then that was the thing. They found the railroad because it's a distinct landmarker on a map.
Right.
But they're like, this is not where we're supposed to be. So they start using the railroad. And then, he leans back up with Gonorrhea. And I think Toy was with that group.
Yep.
And
That's Gonorrhea's boy. Yep.
yeah. And one other one got it. And they ambushed the horse and buggy.
Yep.
But then they
Cut him down.
Yeah, they meet up with
down.
Easy, a building of 101st and a couple other guys that jumped in, and then that's when they gave them the mission for the as they're trying to get counts of everybody. It's like, do you know anyone else from Easy Company? No, we haven't found anyone else yet.
Yeah.
And then they had to go assault the Fitz position of the artillery shells, the 88s.
Yeah.
that were firing down on Omaha.
The other major character development that goes down in Crossroads is that's the one at the beginning where they ambush like a German position and catch him off guard, and Winters shoots like the really young unarmed German guy who like he's got his hands up and smiles, and Winters just pops him.
Yeah, because
Like,
they were
like-
just waking up.
Right, and it's a massacre. Like they hose these guys down, But that legit bothers him because you get literal flashes of that 3-second scene of just like the kid.
Yeah.
And he's a uniformed soldier. Like he's not just like some kid out in the pasture doing farm work. Like no, he's a German soldier, but still like he's unarmed and Winters plugged him. I think that might have been. Is that the most morally gray thing, or not? It's not even morally gray. I mean, I guess that's just outright wrong. Obviously,
Well, he didn't have. He didn't put
that
his
Winters
hands up.
does.
He didn't.
He
put his
gave him
hands
one
up.
of these, I thought.
He turned,
and he wasn't carrying his gun.
Then he realized, and he started to move, and that's when he shot him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess whether or not the kid picked up a gun at that point or you shot him, everybody was going to wake up. So I guess you may as well shoot the combatant at that point. But I mean, is that the most not lawful good thing that Winters does throughout the show? Because that follows him for the rest of the run. Like he's seeing flashbacks of this kid in a couple of different episodes, and that's episode. I think that's 5 for sure, right? Yeah, no, that's 5. I'm looking right there.
Yeah, episode 5 is
So-
the midway point.
So again, like Winters is not morally a perfect character, but he's a good character quality wise because this kind of action bothers him. He doesn't just shrug it off. Unlike Spears, who gets a whole reputation built around him as being like, oh, I gave 20 POWs cigarettes and I gunned them all down.
Yeah.
And the legend grows. Nobody can prove I did that. It's heavily suggested it happened.
Yeah,
But,
no one actually knows what happens,
Right.
And they talk
But the
about
reputation
that later.
built from it.
Was that
Right.
So was that the breaking? No, that was the last patrol.
Yes, it was Last Patrol.
Yeah, no, it was the breaking point. Yep.
You're talking about where he leads like the spearhead and he's like running in by himself like goddamn Superman.
that was,
because like
episode 7, the
because he
breaking
believes he's
point.
already dead.
Yeah,
Because that's the great line he tells the other kid. The kid's like, "How do you get through it?" And Spears is like, "The only way you can get through this is to understand that you're already dead. Then you don't care.
yeah.
And then if you wake up,
act
you're
as a
gold."
soldier, and it was
Right.
You can act as a soldier supposed to act. But then he was talking with Lipton at the end of the breaking point, and he said that maybe he didn't cut off all the heads or talk about like back to
Right.
the Huns, but he wanted everyone to believe.
Right.
Just like maybe people believe because he never denied it, and he goes maybe he
Right.
wanted people to
Dude.
believe it.
Now, if I remember right, you haven't watched Breaking Bad, right? So this analogy may be lost. So the analogy is lost on King's Eve. But for you guys to watch Breaking Bad, it's the same thing where Jesse's trying to do his little upstart. He's going to start cooking and selling meth with just his 3 guys. And one of his guys gets robbed, and Walt wants him to go kill the guy that robbed him. Jesse gets there, but the guy gets the better of him. But then the guy's wife accidentally cracks his head open with an ATM machine. But Walt stops Jesse from telling everybody that's went down. He lets the meth-using community think that Jesse went over there and stomped this guy to put the fear and the reputation out there. It's exactly the same beat. But let's talk episode 6 real quick, because I think this one deserves solid attention just of its own.
Oh yes, episode 6. Actually, episode 6 and 7 is a great like bookend type thing because both of them have really big character building. Each of them focus on one character and then what happens around them. First one, episode 6, Bastogne. If you don't know Bastogne is where the 101st was holding a perimeter, got cut off by the Nazis, had them completely surrounded. They asked for their unconditional, honorable surrender, and the commander sent back a one-word reply. Well, it was more than one word, but it was like but the more words was to the commander of the German forces, nuts.
Yep.
That's where this all came from. This is the Battle of the Bulge. The Germans are pushing back, and this is literally the point, the battle where it was like it broke the Germans back on the Eastern Front as Russia was breaking their back on the Western Front.
It's a good episode because you get another character who only makes her one appearance here. Might be the only female in the entire run of the show that has a speaking line. There's not a whole lot of women serving in active combat roles in World War II, but there's a nurse that the unit's medic, Doc Rowe, that he meets up with when he's taking wounded back to like the field hospital that's
In
close to
Bastogne.
where everybody's set up, but it's not. But it's not super far from where the guys are, because he's making back and forth trips and people are surviving like within the same 24-hour period. You know what I mean? He's taking wounded there to be saved.
Yeah,
it's
but
not like it's not like a 3-day drive and then we're coming back. Like the town's in danger as well.
So what that would be referred to mostly is a casualty collection point. So they should have been evacuated out to a surgeon because they didn't have a surgeon.
Right.
So it should have been evacuated out, but due to the cutoff and being surrounded,
Yeah.
they couldn't get
That's
the
all they
wounded
had.
out. So it was a glorified casualty collection point where they did as much as they can to make the people comfortable and nurse the wounds as best they could.
For me, it's a good episode because you get a comparison of somebody that's serving in the wartime area, but she's clearly a civilian. You know what I mean? And her take on things is less bleak than his is, despite the fact that she's seen just as much death and destruction. Like, she's still there to do what she can to help people, to make people feel better, to comfort people, however you want to put it. And you never see her spirit break. Like, Rose's spirit's on the verge of breaking through the entire episode from what he's seen. He's low on supplies. He goes into town to basically commandeer supplies. And she's like, yeah, here, this is what I can give you. Here's a box of some shit. And then, he sees her like run right back into like a triage area and like pressure on a wound or whatever she's going back to do. And he realizes that stuff sucks everywhere, but there's hope. But then it gets completely yanked out from underneath him by the end of the episode because the effing town catches a German shell or a bombing run or whatever it was.
Run.
Yeah. And then like he sees like her hand sticking out of like the rubble. And I think that destroys him. But I thought it was the most moving episode I think I've seen in 10.
He was on the verge at the beginning, but when Renee lost, like, you had times where like he was forgetting time. Like, he was there and it was at the very end of that episode, he was treating Babe because he cut his hand trying to wake him up and get him out of the foxhole. And then he realized, and then he ran out and he cut his hand on his deer. And then he asked him, like, what happened to your hand? He's like, you did. And he's like, you just called me Babe. He's like, I did? When? He's like, just now. And he's like,
oh, right, because he was using his
did.
formal name the entire time.
Yeah.
That's right. That was a slapping good episode, though.
It was so good.
Because that was a good one because it's kind of like, I think Breaking Point's the same thing. Like, they're holding the line and they're not moving. Like, they're entrenched because they're surrounded. Like, they can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So for me, just as a viewer, it was frustrating to watch because I'm like, all right, we like, let's go. So let's run, let's go, let's do something. But like, we can't. Like, you're literally stuck in place. We're running out of ammo. Like, we're running out of food. Yeah. Like, they're bartering for things like scissors and socks and bootlaces and all kinds of gangster shit.
Boots. Troy, boots. He got, because he said his boots got blown up because he was trying to dry his socks. He had them off.
Right. And then they took a shelling, right?
Yeah.
So he didn't have them on when he had to like leave or get or they were destroyed or whichever.
Yeah.
So like that's their whole standard of living at that point blows.
Well,
like
also,
they're in
like,
danger and
winter
and up
in
against
Northern Europe.
Right.
Like, I mean,
so it's cold.
Where you had like the ammo can where you had water in, but it was frozen. You had to break up the water so you could shave. So you get to water part because it was turned to ice. Is how cold it was out there. They didn't have the proper winter clothes because they were forced to go out there. They didn't have any ammo going out there because you have, if you remember, the end of episode 5. With the whole Jimmy Fallon part of the episode.
I was just going to mention that.
Out,
I was going to mention that cameo.
And like you had I forgot who was marching out. Was marching out of there. But they kept asking, like, you got ammo and like bandoliers and like they were like they started
guys that were leaving because they were getting rotated out and they'd already been like swatted.
Yeah,
but they'd already taken a pretty good beating, and the guys going in Easy Company like descended on them like vultures. But it was right. But you know what I mean? Like, what do you do? Like, we need grenades, we need ammo, we need bandages. Like, we have to go do what you just did. Like, give us all your shit.
And I mean, that perfectly captures NCOs at their best. Like, we need this. Let's go scrounge it up. Let's do this.
Yep. But we talk. Let me throw this in real quick before I forget, because I know I'll forget this point. We talk all the time about how these movies either depict properly or don't depict properly exactly how awful this kind of stuff is and make it not like a video game where there's always another checkpoint, resupply point, emergency airdrop that comes right down where you need it, a traveling merchant that has the exact ammo you need. Like, no, these guys had to like barter with each other and like elect whether or not they were going to have a thing they might need in the near future to make sure somebody that had 0 had 1 right now. With absolutely no guarantee, Jimmy Fallon was rolling up on like a whatever, was he on like the bike with the wagon in the back or whatever?
No,
or whatever
it was
vehicle, or a Jeep or whatever. Was it a Jeep? Was it a Jeep? I didn't remember if it was one of those trikes that had like the little cart in the back or if it was a Jeep. But like Jimmy Fallon shows up of all people with like shit you need. And it's not even a lot.
No.
Like it wasn't going to keep them up, like upright and going for another month. Like, no, it was like an immediate resupply, like to the bullet. And that was it. You know, so I just wanted to point out that like that's the condition that these guys fought under.
They talked about it at the beginning of that episode that like some people only had 1 round.
Right. Yep. Like that's it.
Yeah, they couldn't do airdrops because one, it was winter and it's really foggy. If you know anything about Belgium, it's really foggy up there.
They said that too, that like we did airdrops, but they keep dropping them on the Germans.
Yeah.
I think that's a line of dialogue that came up. Like they keep resupplying the fucking Germans
and they
with our shit.
And also, like when they were briefing the general, when he was asked in like situation, he's like, "Our lines are so thin, Germans are walking through them to use the bathroom."
Yep. And I think that doesn't that happen at the beginning of one of the episodes where the guys are asleep in the morning and like a German patrol like walks through them.
When Winters was trying to shave in the beginning of that episode.
Shave, yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's another banging good episode too right here. And I know we're going long, and I just want to touch on just a couple of other things on some of the other episodes, just some of the other arcs that come up. Like some of the character stuff, you know, with Buck Compton in particular. Like he ends up, when he gets wounded, he watches a couple of guys die. I think it's when Toy loses a leg, Garneri goes to get him to pull him back from getting killed, and that he loses a leg, and then he's got to drag them like both back, I think. But he gets all shell shocked, and like he's not the same guy for like the rest of the show. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like he's a different person after that, and that's after his own wound.
Yeah, and that's also the episode 7 that I wanted to talk about with the whole.
Take your time,
in, because this one, you follow Lipton. And what Lipton's doing, besides having a bad commander, he's holding Easy Company together as the first sergeant.
Oh, yeah.
If you ever want to see a how-to video on how to be a first sergeant, is watching the way was it Donnie Wahlberg portrayed Lipton in this. That's what a first sergeant does. He is there as the senior non-commissioned officer of a company, and he's holding these guys together, keeping morale up, getting people what they need. And then you were talking
he's bouncing foxhole to foxhole while they're up. I mean, in between them being under fire, checking in, slapping guys on the shoulder, like you said, bringing boots and socks and like rations or whatever the hell was going that they needed. You're right.
And the reason why they call this breaking point, I think it has a lot to do with Buck Compton in this, is because he was.
It's multi-level. The title.
He was just getting back to being normal after being shot in the butt in Holland. Like I said, it's an Easy Company tradition.
They had like 3 guys get shot in the ass in that episode. It was like 3 dudes.
Yeah, Pacanti gets shot in the butt in like episode 9. But
Buck, you were talking about Buck being breaking point.
They were talking about like Buck was going to like each of his foxholes talking to his guys. And he's like, "Don't do anything stupid." He was like, and like everyone was reciting, "Yes, don't do anything stupid." Like they could see like he was really worried about losing more men. Like it was getting to him. And then when he saw what happened to Garnier and Troy, which they both lost a leg. Troy was first hit by an artillery shell, and then while he Gonorrhea was trying to pull him into a foxhole, he got hit by an artillery shell, and he lost a leg. And seeing his 2 friends in that condition, Compton was done. It has a great scene where he's like, he just takes his helmet off and he just kind of just drops as he's staring at the carnage of an artillery shell hitting nearby. And they said that he left with severe trench foot, and they sent him back home. Marlarty was the one who was there coming and reading stuff to him and trying to keep him going. But the other breaking point in this episode is that this is after the 3rd Armor breaks through the German lines, open up supply lines so they could get the right food and stuff. But they still have to clear the area out, and they fall back in on their old foxholes from Foy. Yep. And the one where Troy steps into his old foxhole and like someone took a crap in it.
Someone took a shit in here.
And it's like, I think they took trapped. Maybe they didn't want to come above, like you didn't see the trees and what the artillery shells looked like hitting the trees.
Flattened.
Yeah.
They have a great follow-up line for that later because I think they run into those guys somewhere and doesn't. Maybe I just made this up, but I thought one of them said, "Hey, maybe don't crap in my foxhole this time." Does that happen later?
No, he said, "Thank you for crapping in my."
All right. I thought there was a follow-up line.
Yeah,
it was
like,
that.
have
You're
fun
right,
walking because they were on trucks being pulled out.
They're on the trucks. That's right.
It was after they
good.
took Foy, and Foy was the other breaking point because they First Sergeant Limpton kept talking about like how bad their commander is. Like he would go for walks, or he's like, Captain Limpton, you organize things here. I'm gonna go for help. And then
but that they needed that's a perfect incompetent foil to who Lipton is. You know what I mean? Like we already liked Lipton, and we like all the guys in the. There's not a character you don't like. You know, I like Scott Grimes as Malarkey. He was a great character. We haven't talked about him.
Yeah.
If you guys watch the Orville, that's Gordon on the Orville. I love him.
Yeah.
Right. We already love Lipton because we saw he's basically Winters Jr. is who he is. He's got his guy's best intention to heart no matter what. Like he's trying to take care of people. That's who he is. So when you juxtapose him next to somebody that's so stupid, incompetent, and out of their depth, it's the same way we got Sobel juxtaposed next to Winters. You know what I mean? It's you got two guys that are looking out for all their dudes, and you two pinheads over here that are in charge are either wandering off or not knowing what the hell to do. So it makes you like the other guys more by juxtaposition. You know what I mean? It's really good writing. Yeah. It's really good character development indirectly.
So my wife was looking up stuff while we were watching this, and one of the things is that the estate of Dites, the company commander, actually sued the production for how Dites was portrayed in this.
Oh, really?
But if you go, because they said that it was totally different, and like this isn't what
like
really happened.
Like a defamation type of suit.
But but like if you read everybody's autobiography, no one says anything nice about him. Yep. Of how he was, and like he freezes on their advance on Foy, and like they told him, you got to go that way really fast, keep it tight, and move that way hard and fast. You got to take out.
Yep, I remember.
Get within there, and he freezes, and then he's like,
they lose guys because of it.
Yeah,
right.
Like you run
because he doesn't take the position he's supposed to.
And they're like, we gotta move from here, and he's like, well, do suppressive fire from here. And then Winter's about to run down. The colonel yells at him, he's like, don't you dare step a foot on that field. And he was like, he turns around, he's like, Spears, go down there.
I was saying this is where
Dites.
Spears does the thing.
Yep.
That's where Spears does the thing.
He's like, all right, no, we're
John
doing
Rambo.
this. And then it was like, we need to coordinate with 11. And then he just takes off. And he's like, no one shot at him. It was like, at first they were just shocked that this guy runs past them. And then he was just moving. He jumps the wall, and then he comes back.
You gotta just say, don't forget he comes back. Like he comes back. Yeah. That's crazy.
But then you have
that scene, I was just saying, that scene might have been the closest thing to like Hollywood action star shit in the entire show. Like the show is not full of moments like, I mean, outside of the artillery battery assault, which was not heavily dramatized, and like they took their losses, and obviously Compton gets shot or whatever, but like this part with this dude just running through them, all it was missing was slow motion and like John Woo explosions in the background, like, and maybe some doves. Like that was it. It was a little Hollywood, but yeah, it was cool. And then I think they earned it by that point.
And then to the end where he's talking to Limpton. Limpton's like, I'm just glad that we have a good commander again. He's like, that's not what I hear. Like, you guys had a good commander the whole time. He's like, someone who kept morale up, kept the team together. He did the best they did as people in the safe positions. He goes, you know who that is? And Limpton's like, he's like, you. And he's like, Sink already put in the thing. You're going to get a battlefield promotion to lieutenant.
Yep.
He's like, He's like, you're going to hear this in about like a couple of days, but congratulations.
Yeah, it was good. That was a slapping good part too. That was a heavy action section in a show when before it had just been our guys getting kind of just shelled in position because you can't shoot back at artillery from where they were, obviously.
And if artillery's already zeroed in on your position, you're going to get the blunt of it.
They say that verbatim. I think I'm pretty sure that was this show and not. They might have said it in Private Ryan too, but I think it was that show. I think it was Band of Brothers, where they've got us zeroed, like we're done. Get to cover, we're boned. But I got time, I think, for one more segment on maybe the wrap up. I mean, we didn't talk about Nix a whole lot because I know, dude, but I mean, is this a part one situation? I mean, I don't know, because there is the stuff with Nyx, because he gets some late season development.
We're doing this, and we're doing this right.
Okay, all right. He said, I'm in. Okay, there we go. So, Nyx gets some later development. His wife divorces him. He's dealing with the alcoholism. He's got to come to grips with that. He loses his happy-go-lucky, sarcastic shit for a little bit and starts snapping at people. I mean, he's got some stuff.
Yeah, which comes into a great episode, an episode I really want to dive into, and that's episode.
Oh yeah, we're not jumping off until King Z gets his fill.
Why we fight? You don't.
Oh, dude, it would have been criminal to stop without mentioning that episode. You're right.
Why we fight is probably the most heart-wrenching thing I've ever seen. And to all of you Holocaust deniers, y'all need to be re-educated because it happened. These people are living accounts of what they saw and what they found. And if you don't believe this actually happened, then I have no
King Z don't have the words. King Z. It sounded like he was going to go with do us all a favor, and you guys can fill in the blanks from there.
16 million people disappeared from the earth because they were either a minority or they were a Jew during this war.
And like you said, dude, not to mention like the firsthand accounts of survivors that we found, that we have documented photographic evidence of. People have the tattoo, people have the star. Like there's no getting around that uncomfortable truth of history. But this episode, you're right. It would have been criminal not to talk about this.
And this is the episode where you see Nyx lose that what made Nyx Nyx.
Yeah, he was the sarcastic, happy-go-lucky. Can I get us a drink one?
Yeah,
he was the not comic relief, but he was the lighthearted, not serious one. But like these guys roll up on the gates, and I don't remember which camp it was. It started with an L, I believe. Loring.
Yeah, it was
something like that.
Lansenberg.
I can't. My
Landsberg. Letzenberg.
Okay.
And I think
they roll up on the
Bulgaria.
Camp. And it was, which is Germany, obviously. Yeah. And it was awful. We got emaciated guys looking like ghouls, staring out at these guys, through the fence. The troopers that go in, they don't know what the hell to make of it, because that they hadn't seen anything like that. That wasn't anything that was common knowledge at the time, and they open the gates to go in, and like some of it's a perfect spectrum of responses. A lot of the prisoners don't care because it's just more guys with guns. Some of them run away, like they don't run away because they're all malnourished, but like they recoil in fear because there's guys with guns. And some of them just break down in tears and like hug the Allied guys when they're going in. And like, that's it. Like if you don't drop a tear or two when that happens, like King Z said, maybe this isn't the channel for you and maybe you should do us all a favor, because that was some gut wrenching shit to see guys so thin that literally you could almost see a pulse.
And like, it was a common occurrence.
It was terrible.
During the end of the war that they would, like they did in this one, just lock the gates and leave.
Yeah. Well, and they made the point of saying they shot us until they ran out of ammo and then locked the rest of us in with the dead.
They also like to burn some of their shacks with people inside of them.
Yeah. Well, and there's evidence of that on the show anyway, where they show you that some of the barracks, some of the prisoner housing is burned. Like that's in the background, like it's there, and it's smoking. They mentioned. Did they mention that they found ovens and gas chambers in that? I think they mentioned ovens, but not gas chambers.
So they didn't say they found it that.
Because they were cremating remains.
Reports of these things because none of them knew about these. Like the concentration camps, they knew they were rounding up the Jews. They didn't know what they were doing with them.
Right.
Finding these concentration camps didn't happen until we cleared areas like this and actually come upon one. And they didn't know what they were, and that's when he sent it up. And like he got reports from other people have come across this one, and then like they were talking about they talked about Auschwitz. Like they didn't mention it by name, but they were like they found a bigger one, more people, furnaces, execution chambers, like furnaces, like to cremate the dead.
Maybe that's what they said. Execution chambers. They didn't say gas chambers specifically. It was execution chambers. What they said. Dude, the biggest gut punch of these guys in this episode, to me, that first contact with them getting in the gates was awful, having to keep them there was worse.
Oh,
Like
yes,
when the doctor broke down the whole, you can't overfeed them, you'll kill them.
Yeah,
that's just how starvation
you're
works. That's like
actually
medical
hurting
protocol.
them by feeding
Right.
them because these
You
people
can't
are
let them leave.
starving.
They need to be monitored.
Yeah.
And they had to tell them they couldn't fucking go.
And had to put them back in the camp.
I had to go for a walk.
Libdit
Yeah.
had to tell them 'cause
Yeah.
he spoke German
Yeah.
and he was a Jew.
Yeah.
And he had to
Yep.
tell them to get back in the camp.
Nope. Had to pause that and take a walk. I was like, nope, couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. And then he has a decent, well-earned, well-performed breakdown of his own. Like after he gets out, I think he gets out of the way after he, gives the command or whatever to, keep them where they are. Like it's all very real and humanized. Like you can see it. You got people in the background carrying like the limp, lifeless 14-pound bodies
Because
of
their
like
bodies had,
their
like, no
brothers,
muscle
their
left.
dads.
Because their
Right. That's
bodies
what I'm saying.
ate themselves.
Right. Their muscles have atrophied to like nothing.
Yeah.
Most of them are barefoot. You know what I mean? They all look and beaten and bruised and starved out, and it was terrible. But that is exactly why we fight.
It was pure evil.
Yeah, it was hell on earth, man.
It was pure
Hell
evil.
on earth. Look no further. But you love when though the commander rolls through, declares martial law, and puts all the German villagers who denied anything was happening a block down the road and puts them on grave detail.
Yeah.
Because you get that good scene. Is it Winters who's going through the German houses? He gets into one rich lady's house and she's got a picture of the German
Nix.
high. It's
That
not
was
Hitler, but
Nix.
it's a German. It was Nix. She's got a picture of whatever German high commander like on her mantle, and she just gives him a look. He just kind of drops the picture and leaves. But then later, she's one of the sea bags on grave detail, and he gives her the look like, "Yeah, fuck you, we knew. You can deny all you want, we knew."
People throw around a term way too easily today, especially when it comes to something they don't agree with, and that's fascist.
Here comes the G word. Oh, okay. I was gonna go with the G word. I was going a different direction. Okay.
No, fascist and Nazi.
Yep.
And you guys who use it as freely when you're especially referring to right-wing people, you have no idea what that word means. Because this is a Nazi. What these people did to these other people just because they were Jews, that is a Nazi.
Yep.
Those are fascists because they controlled everything about everyone's life.
When you live, when you die included.
You need to educate yourself because we're doomed to repeat it. Look what's happening in America today. That's all I gotta say.
That's a big word to throw around. I was gonna go with the G word and go with genocide. People throw that word around an awful lot too. Same facts I would say apply. But banger episode. It's not something you watch to enjoy. It's something you watch to understand.
Yep.
And we don't do, because we're old school, we don't do like trigger warnings on media, but I'll do a general advisement. This one is not easy to watch.
No, it's not.
Especially at those moments. Definitely not.
Now,
Definitely not.
to the hair and makeup people who had to make these actors look like that,
Yeah.
you guys should have won every award there possible for like 10 years in a row because you guys did an amazing job to capture the horror of what these concentration camps were to these Jews.
It was awful. Definitely awful. I think, we've watched a lot of bleak war-related stuff, especially in our Vietnam footage, like our Vietnam movie coverage footage, like on We Were Soldiers, in particular with some of the other gruesomeness of the things that happened there. And Hacksaw Ridge too, I guess, was just as gruesome with bodies being stacked on trucks, like heading out, things like that. So we've seen some awful stuff, but for a more or less goreless, bloodless kind of awful, this might be the worst thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like put to film, because this isn't like a, when we think of Nazis in video games and everything is thrown over the top, it's something like Doom or a Wolfenstein or something, and it's like blood on the walls with pentagrams and body parts. That's not this. Like there's no butcher's table set up on this. It was almost black and white, very stark, very bleak. Colors were washed out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it just set the tone very well. And you you get the great responses from the Allies as they're just stunned into silence as they walk in.
As they had no idea what they just stumbled upon. Like you had like when you see them walk up and you see steam and you see it from like the cameras at the angle of the Allies, and then you see Picante running back. And he was like, "Is there an officer nearby?" He's like, "I think he's over here." He's like, "Is there an officer by?" "Oh, Winter's right over there." And he runs over to Winters. He's like, "Sir, there we come across something." He's like, "What is it?" He's like, "I can't describe it. You have to come with me."
Yep. What word? I mean, what words do you use?
Yeah.
We found a prison camp. Okay, we found 40 of those. I like that. You haven't.
Yeah.
That was rough. So, yeah, that was. I'm glad. I'm glad they saved this for the penultimate, because I feel like this is a great way. I mean, I guess they didn't say it. They did follow the timeline of how the events happened. But I guess I'll say this: I'm glad something giant like this didn't happen earlier. That, if they had found something smaller in scale, but impactful like that, like the human suffering, the civilian human suffering, not a big player except for the Renee the nurse or whatever her name was in episode 6. Like, that's a civilian that got it rough. But the rest of it were just guys, like not that they're not people, you know what I mean? The soldiers. There's a suffering involved with battle, but this was like 10 trillion people in this camp that were not soldiers. Yeah. They're just people.
The only thing you could actually, there's nothing you can compare it to, but the only other area in this was episode 4, The Replacements, where they do Operation Market Garden, which was a complete failure by the Allies.
Yeah.
Where they were trying to go through Holland. They jumped into Holland, and they were supposed to be like, it was bad intel where they told them it was supposed to be like boys and old men.
Boys and old men.
But like you saw like the way they treated people who were Nazi sympathizers when they liberated that one town.
Collaborators, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we mentioned that scene when we were talking about Saving Private Ryan, where it's like, if there's like the women from Holland that were collaborators, they got their heads shaved. Yeah. The guys over there getting shot and hung.
Yep.
And it may not have been people that wanted to be Nazi collaborators. Like, maybe they thought that's how you keep your kids alive. So I guess I'm sympathetic to sympathizers sometimes, I guess, because there's just a real human cost associated with having to make that terrible fucking decision. Like I can see why that was a thing. But you never turn on your neighbors, though. Gina Carano was right. # Gina was right.
And then to put a timeline of this episode when it actually took place in the war was Ditson delivered the line at the very end to the Easy Company watching like the Germans start cleaning up their town and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Was Adolf Hitler just committed suicide.
Yeah. So that brings us kind of to the end of Band of Brothers, where the war ends. But then they find out like 15 seconds later, hey, homeboy, you going to the Pacific, bro?
Yeah.
Like, this isn't over yet.
Victory in Europe. It wasn't victory in the war. The war wasn't over.
Japan was still doing their thing. Yeah, Japan was still popping off. But they catch a break because as Winters is like, I'd like to transfer out of this position and go right now to the Pacific. He's like, let me go. Because the last episode's called Points, and they're trying to figure out a way to get anybody home that can rotate and go home. The sniper that was with them the whole time, was his name?
Swifty?
Shifty, Swifty, something like, yes. Like they somehow collaborate to make sure that he's the one that wins. Like he doesn't win the random drawing. Like they make it happen.
In the hat.
Right. So they set him up, but then
amount of points out of everybody.
He was like 40 away. Right, never injured, which is how you got a chunk. But Winters takes care of his guys. Like he sends Malarkey somewhere to France, like non-combat related. Yeah, like he's not out of the army.
To do air shows with like the different aircraft, like to teach people how to jump out of them and stuff like that.
Right. He sends him there. There were a couple of, I don't know if it was Lipton or something, I don't remember, but there were like two or three guys like that Winters took care of. And then by the grace of God, the war ended and nobody had to go.
Yeah.
Like they never got around to sending any of those guys.
Yeah, because you saw the footage of Okinawa, which if you want to see anything about Okinawa, check out our review of Hatsaw Ridge, which covers Okinawa.
Yep.
And then the next thing at the very end, you find out that the bombs have dropped. And Japan was like, no more. No more.
Unconditional surrender. We're good. We don't need numbers 3 and 4.
I want to ask you this moral question right here. Do you believe that we should have dropped the bombs?
Yeah, dude. I'd have used all 4 of them. There's a mathematical equation that goes into that in deciding how much upfront life costs it's going to cost you to fight this war on a protracted basis. And if it's going to take 1 million deaths or whatever the number was up front to stop 30 million, I wholeheartedly believe in that. Wholeheartedly. On either side. Like, I'm not saying I want that to happen here, but I'm in this to win. And if I destroy you up front so I don't have to destroy you for a decade, how is that not a win for everybody?
I think that they marketed the toll would have been 2.2 million deaths to take mainland Japan.
Yep. Nope. We don't have 2.2 million guys.
Fighting every inch of the way.
Right. No, I'm good. We had enough of that in Okinawa. And that was the thing. I think that was what convinced this needed to happen. Places like Iwo Jima, this convinced us this was not going to be a cakewalk.
Yeah.
What was going to happen? What was going to happen? It's easy to move supplies across the English Channel and get them into Europe to reinforce your guys
and you
in
have
France
land
and in
build,
Germany.
Red Ball. This would
Right.
have been
This is
more
island
ships.
warfare.
Your
Right.
aircraft. I mean, we destroyed their navy at the Battle of Midway.
Right.
We crippled their navy so bad at the Battle of Midway.
That was Turning Point. Yep.
Yeah.
Turning Point.
But still, trying to take mainland Japan, you'd have to take it inch by inch because the tenacity of how the German or the Japanese fought.
Warrior spirit, 100%. But I mean, just to touch on your point that you made earlier about not looking out a plane on a jump site and looking at the ground. There's no laser guided anything. There's no GPS. We couldn't airdrop stuff accurately over mainland flat terrain in Europe. You want to airdrop supplies and set up base camps island to island? How? Who's going to do that? The technology did not exist. I don't think the fortitudinal motivation existed after we got that first taste of what war in the Pacific was going to be like. So no, I don't oppose I oppose, generally speaking, the use of those weapons going forward, because I think it made enough of a statement to the world that this is a terrible idea. I hope to live out the rest of my days and never see any version of those weapons deployed anywhere on anybody, unless it's a counteroffensive, and then I'm all for it.
Especially the new ones that we have now, but.
Yeah, dude, awful.
We're a first strike country, so.
Yeah, awful. I'm good. I don't need to see any version of an EMP detonated. I don't need to see any version in 20 years of an antimatter explosion detonated, if you want to get a little sci-fi. I've seen it. I'm good. No mas. I'm good here. Don't need it. The Moab's just fine.
Moab.
You know it.
Yeah.
Listen, when 45 wins in a couple months, those are coming back into style. That's all I'm saying. Just saying. But anyways, you want to wrap us up on Band of Brothers? So don't need to accelerate to get out. If there's any other key plot points or arcs you wanted to go through, like when the one guy flips his lid and shoots the other guy in the face.
Yeah, and
then he runs away, and the other guy's got to go get him and beat the crap out of him.
Yeah.
Or when the three of them track down the commander, the German guy, and kill him.
Spears almost kills him.
Yep. There's a couple, but that shows you the decompression point. These guys are waiting to go home. They take the Eagle's Nest, they divvy up the liquor, you la-di-da, everything's looking good. But now we're just sitting around.
Because my wife pulled up a picture that they took of Nick, and he's in his bunk, and his bunk is surrounded by the bottles of that.
Bottles.
So there was actually 16,000 bottles of wines and liquors and stuff like that, and they only reported that they found 10,000.
Did I report I found 4? Not 1,000, just 4. Yeah. Everybody gets a bottle. I mean, that was a great scene when they open the door and they get in there and you can actually see it. It opens like it's effing Jurassic Park, and it's just floor to ceiling, vaulted ceiling of a wine cellar. It was an impressive shot.
Yeah. So
impressive shots. There's a lot of cool shit in there.
It was like the last tail end of the war. Like Germany surrendered while they were in the Eagle's Nest. They took the Eagle's Nest, and then Germany surrendered. So they were at peace in Germany, and you saw them working together with what was left of the German army. Like you had the one patrol where you saw Tom Hardy's character get in a traffic accident and die. Winters hinted that like the war's over, but we can't stop people from dying.
There were a couple of other good little visuals that went along with that too. Like there's the one where they're marching like 20,000 German prisoners with like 10 guys covering them to like march them. I'm like, all right, I see the numbers here. I guess we surrendered, but I guess that's what happens when you fight an official, legally declared war. Like you can do that, and you can assume that 20,000 guys won't mob you, because then you get that because there's a different code. Because we get that scene later where the German commander offers his sidearm
as a formal surrender.
As a formal surrender, and was it to Winters or was it to Nix? I don't remember who it was. It was to Winters, and he goes, "That's cool. Like you can keep it.
You can keep your sidearm."
And I'm like,
Colonel.
But they unloaded that, right? In my head, I'm like, that's unloaded, right? But it probably wasn't. Because it was like
it's a testament to his honor of honoring.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
And it's like he gets to keep a little bit of his dignity, so know he's going to abide by what you're telling him.
Yep.
You get to let him keep that little bit of himself. It was like letting later the German general address his troops after they surrendered.
In German, like
Yeah.
right, like he was allowed to address them, and it's a pretty. It was a heartfelt, I thought, sentence. Like, you fought well, you fought for your country, you'd be proud of yourselves, whatever it was.
I was honored to serve with you.
I was honored to serve, like all the good stuff that you would expect a good commander to say to his guys, defeat or otherwise. So I thought there was enough of that. We said that about the We Were Soldiers review when we were kind of talking about the Viet Cong commander who was checking on his guys, he was checking wounds, and he was giving them the pep speech and. Yeah, we got to hit them with everything we got. This is our chance. We're going to teach them. This is our land, yada, yada. Like all that good commander stuff. Like they're not mustache twirling dickweeds, even though the evil shit obviously went on. Like the farm boys from Germany over there probably didn't give a fuck about putting anybody in a concentration camp. Like I'll go to my grave thinking of that. Like if you're on the grunt level of things, you probably don't necessarily buy all of it. I don't know. Maybe that's naivety on my part, but I'm thinking human beings are not a monolith. People have different opinions, unless it's a cult. And I don't think a branch of soldiers that has like 5,000 people, 500,000 people in it all think exactly the same thing. That'd just be my civilian take on the matter. But you got anything else on Band of Brothers?
And then of course the end where they revealed everybody, and the best line that ended it was you had, I believe it was Lipton talking, and he was saying his grandson asked him, he's like, he asked if that was you, and he's like, yes. He's like, were you a hero? He was like, no, but I was in a company of heroes. Yeah. And like
they stole that name for the video game.
Great line. Yeah, that was another thing that we throw out too casually. Hero. We have superheroes, and you look at people with like them as heroes. No. What this generation did and how they fought, how they stuck together, they were heroes for the pure evil that they faced, the tenacity that they had to face it, with the turmoil and the tribulations that they had to go through. They're the definition of heroes. No, they might not be perfect. Yes, they have plenty of flaws.
Yep.
But they were still heroes. Like they talked about and they talked about it in Hacksaw Ridge, and it was in this one people who were ruled 4F and couldn't serve, and they committed suicide. I think they talked about it in the beginning clip of episode 1 of this.
Yep.
It was like people wanted to serve, and they knew they were going into combat. No one had any disillusions that some of them were not coming back. And I think how many of the original ones did come back is a testament of how well they were trained. So these people are heroes, and I think we use that term just way too loosely.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that, especially as we apply it to like things like entertainment and sports. Nonsense like that. You know what I mean? Like I'll give it to first responders. I'll give it to anybody that operated in a crisis situation, like during the pandemic, like healthcare. For those of us that weren't doing TikTok videos in the hallways and demanding you got 9 jabs and shit, because not all of us did that. Yeah. Just saying. We throw it around a lot.
How you measure a hero, I would say, is when people are screaming, which way are you running? Are you running towards the screaming, or are you running with the screaming?
Yep. Great point. I've just received a word that the Celtics may have closed out Game 4 with a win.
Good
so
for
that would indicate a sweep. And on to the finals. But yeah, there we go.
Let's see if they could do something they haven't done since Kevin Garnett played for them.
Well, it's only been like 37 years since that happened. We can cut that part out. It's fine. Yeah, guys, if you've stuck around this long, Kingsley and I would like to voice our appreciation. We know this was a long one, but Band of Brothers has a lot of good stuff, and I almost cut us off before we got to probably the most impactful episode out of all of them. So we appreciate it. If you'd like to see more coverage of movies like this, we're always ears open always to suggestions of what you guys would like us to cover. This has been our Salute to Soldiers from Memorial Day 2024. We appreciate the sacrifice everybody that didn't make it home has made for us to be able to sit here and make these kind of videos and live the kind of lives that we live. We do appreciate that. Kingsley, if you want to give a Memorial Day salute or whatever you'd like to do, I got nothing else to say. The floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with me on this really long review of Band of Brothers. But there, like he said, there's so much to say, and we didn't even get into like all the new stars that were created from this one.
Yeah.
Like Ron Livingston
Ensemble.
didn't really have a lot of credits. This is Tom Harding's first professional thing. He had 2 shorts before this, before he did Black Hawk Down, which is his first feature-length film he did. Donnie Wahlberg, so many people. Michael Fassbender.
Fassbender, Neil McDonough, James McAvoy, like we mentioned. There's one that's at the tip of my tongue. I can't remember the name, but it's Abraham from Walking Dead. He played Randall or Randleman in this one. The guy that gets separated from the group and fights the Nazi in the barn is on Walking Dead.
Bull.
Bull. Yeah. Bull Randleman. That was it.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, lots of stars in this, man. Lots of stars.
stars.
Obviously, you got a David Schwimmer.
The
guy that played Winners.
Friends success.
The guy that played Winners is Damian something. If I remember right.
Where is Winners? Oh, there he is. Damian Lewis.
Yep.
Who went on to do Homeland,
Lewis, that's right.
And now I think this series out is Billions.
Yep. There's lots of people. And the cast have like 30. When I checked on Wikipedia, right, it said the regular cast had like 15 names. Then it had recurring cast, which had like 25 names. And then it had a third section that I think it said like side characters that had like 40 effing names in it.
Yeah,
so, if you mix up characters.
Yeah.
minor, that's what it was, right?
Simon Pegg. So, forgot Simon Pegg.
Right, Simon, yes, that's right. I forgot to see. I knew there was one I was forgetting. I knew it. Yep. That's what I'm saying. That might have been his first on-screen appearance with anything.
Yeah, and his American accent is spot on. He had a great American accent.
So that any Memorial Day announcements? I know you're big on that, for the month, definitely.
So
we're actually say something.
Filming this on Memorial Day, so I hope you guys had a great day of remembrance. Love the ones you lit with, love the ones that didn't come home. All I can say is that I'm proud to serve. I'm proud who I served with, and there's not really much you can say on this day. It's
not the other one.
So many gave all for us to be able to do something stupid like do a YouTube video. So
that's right, dude. Their day at the beach for our day at the beach, right? That's I've seen that slogan thrown around a lot today on memes and stuff.
It
makes sense.
It's a lot harder, so
a lot different,
and it's a lot harder than anything I ever had to go through in my 21 years. So, my hats off to them. Well, there'll never be anyone like them again. So,
well said, man. All right, guys, we're gonna take off and clip this all up so we can get this out for you ASAP. We appreciate you, and we'll see you in the next one.